This is a brief video which outlines how meter works in English poetry. So meter means the stress patterns in a line of poetry. Stress patterns refer to the way certain syllables are emphasized more than others. A feature of English language in particular is that syllables have different levels of stress, and so poets who write in English often utilize these patterns of stressed or unstressed syllables to create a sense of rhythm. Units of rhythm in poetry are called feet, so it's a repeating sequence of rhythms in syllables. We are going to look at 4 different types of rhythm or feet: iambic, trochaic, anapestic, and dactylic. Iambic meter is probably the most common in English poetry, and it most closely resembles a natural sounding syllable pattern or stress pattern. In notation here, the slashes represent a stressed syllable and X's represent an unstressed syllable. And so you can see in this couplet, it kind of breaks down, and you can sort of see how some syllables are stressed and others are not, and it fits into this regular alternating pattern. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. This one is pretty nice because every single word in these 2 lines is a single syllable, so it's easy to see, and you can see that it's this alternating pattern in which each 2-syllable unit or foot is following this unstressed stress pattern. So each of these is an iamb, and this couplet is using iambic feet. So we would say that it is written using iambic meter in this poem. Trochaic is the opposite. In this case, the stressed syllable is first, followed by an unstressed. So we don't have the annotations on this couplet, but you can easily see in the word tiger, it's a 2-syllable word, but the first syllable is stressed. Tiger, tiger, burning, bright. Now you will notice here that we're ending on a single stressed syllable. In the forest of the night. So in this case, it gives it a more pounding feel to it because it's the stressed, unstressed pattern. Now the next 2, anapestic and dactylic, look at feet that have 3 syllables. So iambic and trochaic each had 2 syllables per foot. These are now 3, so they kind of have a little more of a lilting feel. So in anapestic, it's going to be unstressed, unstressed, stressed. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. There was one missing syllable here. It wasn't a perfect anapestic line, but you get the idea. So here in dactylic, you can see the stress patterns are based on another 3-syllable foot. In this case, stressed, unstressed, unstressed. The word dactyl comes from the Greek word for finger, and if you look at your left hand and your pointer finger, you'll notice that you've got like sort of 3 knuckles, and the first one is bigger and then they're littler, so it's like a big, little, little, or stressed, unstressed, unstressed. Just for a handful of silver he left us. Notice an incomplete dactyl there. Just for a ribbon to stick in his coat. So you can work out and see that there's these patterns of stressed and then 2 unstressed syllables. So the final form is dactylic. So finally, we're going to look at alliteration and assonance. Alliteration, more people are familiar with. It's the repeating of a consonant sound, like as in this couplet here, where all the words begin with an S sound: suddenly, swallows, swiftly skimming, sunset, slowly spreading shade. Assonance is simply the idea of repeated vowel sounds, as in on a proud, round cloud, in white, high night. So you can think of maybe vowel sounds as being important in rhyming at the end of lines, but they can also produce interesting effects when they're repeated within a line. In this sonnet written by Gerard Manley Hopkins, we can see the poet has used a lot of both alliteration and assonance to create a really interesting, not just a descriptive picture, but also almost a sound picture. So see if you can notice how many instances of alliteration and assonance you can find. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim and roundy wells, stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells, selves goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. I say more. The just man justices, keeps grace that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ, for Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces. It almost kind of ends up being like a tongue twister, as it relies so heavily on the repeating consonant and vowel sounds within the lines. And then, just for fun, on your own, you can consider these two poems that I wrote when I was a student and was bored of doing homework. And you can see what meter they are. These ones are not too complicated. And if you can find any examples of other poetic features. So you can review this video as many times as you need to make sure you understand how these features work, especially the metrical system, so that you can recreate it on your own.